What is up, guys? Silver Warrior here, and today I wanted to make kind of not really necessarily a different video, but just kind of like a video to really get you thinking a little bit, and also to maybe help you out if this is something you were honestly concerned with. But I'm sure most of you guys aren't too worried about this so much as just it's a nice thought for your future, and that is how much silver do you need to, how much silver basically should you have before you stop investing in silver? And I've seen another video on the topic, which is what kind of inspired me to weigh in myself. But as you know, guys possibly know or possibly don't know, whenever I make a video like this, I like to look at it from multiple perspectives and think about it in different ways as to exactly what is the best perspective to look at the situation from. And really, honestly, I think there's what it comes down to is that there's no amount of silver that you should necessarily stop at. There's amounts of silver I think you should strive for to obtain in your stack, but I don't think that means that you should go out and say, once I'm at this amount of silver, I'm going to stop. It's just like, this is kind of a very different example, but it's kind of like when you are, training, in weightlifting. If you constantly think in your head, you have the mindset of, I want to get this amount of repetitions on whatever exercise you're doing, then you're going to be hindering your full potential, because maybe you had another rep in you, but your mind basically prepared your muscles to stop at that rep, so you might have gotten pinned by the next one, even if you possibly had another one that you could have grinded out. And really is the same thing with silver. I know, like I said, it's kind of a a little bit of a random example there, but it really does compare to silver, because when you think about it, if you have a mindset of, this is how much silver I want to have, and then I'm just going to stop, then you're going to be, again, hindering the full potential that you have as an investor. You could indeed have more silver. And also, you have to kind of look at it from multiple perspectives, like I was saying, which, let me get kind of into those. One is a perspective of how much weight should you obtain in silver. Another is how much value should you obtain in silver. And I really do think that if there's going to be a limit on anything, it should be how much weight, just because of the fact that this is the very simple fact that if you have, several thousand ounces of silver, it's not going to be very easy to move. If you have to move it very quickly for some reason, then that's not going to be an easy task to pull off, because you have hundreds upon hundreds of pounds of silver, which for the normal, at least for an ordinary person, it's not a very easy amount of silver to lift. So that's definitely something to consider, and that's why I'd say, if you can afford it, that much silver, then maybe you might want to consider switching to gold. Not that I'd say gold's as good of an investment as silver, because I always say silver is a better investment than gold. It has more long-term potential than gold. However, gold is an easier store of wealth. You can turn 1,000 ounces of silver into about, let me think about these current rates. It'd be about maybe 13 ounces of gold, what 1,000 ounces of silver would be. And 13 ounces of gold is a hell of a lot easier to move than 1,000 ounces of silver, obviously, because if you have 1,000 ounces of silver, you're talking about you're talking about 62 and a half pounds. So that's going to be a bit strenuous to move. We're talking about 62 and a half troy pounds, mind you, not 62 and a half standard pounds. And so if you have, if you're someone who's really crazy and has 5,000 ounces or so, you're talking about 300 plus pounds of silver, then trying to move that is just going to be such a hassle that it's not going to be worth it. You're basically end up having to leave some silver behind if you have to leave your premise very, very quickly. Or hiding the silver is another thing, and storing the silver. It just becomes a very, very difficult task once you get into the 5,000 ounce plus area. Storing that much silver just becomes a very difficult thing to do. So, that being said, what I recommend you do is you diversify. I'd say, rather than just thinking, all I want is bullion. No, that's limiting your potential. That is such a ludicrous thing, because there's people out there who are like, I'm only stacking for economic collapse. Fine, but you can be prepared for that collapse and at the same time make a little bit of money along the way. Nobody is saying that you can't pick up a few higher premium pieces and sell them for a profit, or just have a few better pieces in your stack, because those are going to be worth a lot of money to certain people especially people who are looking for those coins. And if a collapse was imminent, then hopefully you'd be able to tell, because it's a little bit more obvious than people seem to think. And you'd be able to offload those coins quickly, and at the same time, you'd have also a decent amount of silver in your stack. And like I always say, you need those diversifications, because if you're ever forced to sell silver because you need a little of money, and let's say silver prices are down a couple of dollars an ounce, you can either sell your silver bullion at a loss, or you can sell a few higher premium coins and maybe break even, or maybe a little bit of a loss, or maybe even a little bit of a gain, which is why I'd say if you're going to be buying those higher premium pieces, don't ever pay the full red book value for them ever, or blue book, or whatever book you have. Usually the values are pretty similar. Please just do not pay what the recommended price is, because if you need to offload the coin really quickly, you're not going to be able to get that for the coin either. If you need to offload it in the next few days, you want to buy the coin for what you could sell it for within the next 24 hours is what I recommend doing, because otherwise you could be forced to sell at a loss, especially if you're someone like myself who doesn't plan to sell a lot of the pieces they pick up. I sell a few things here and there, but I'm not buying to sell necessarily. So definitely I'd recommend trying to pick up coins on the cheap. But if you see a good deal, then jump on it. Don't just let it sit there and let someone else steal it from you, even if it is a little bit more money. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say here is that in terms of overall weight, yes, probably you should limit yourself to a certain amount. But in terms of overall money invested into silver, no, you don't have to limit that at all, as long as you have pieces that are easier to move as well as your big bullion pieces. Because at the end of the day, like I said, moving 5,000 ounces of silver is not an easy thing to do. But 5,000 ounces of silver, assuming that even if you had higher premium bullion, well, I mean, we could make it easier, or we could just assume that you're buying at $18 an ounce. Or let's say at this point you'd be selling at $18 an ounce, I should say. It's $90,000 worth of silver. There's silver coins that are worth 10, 20 times that. So you could really take, if you had 90,000 to spend on silver, then you could take some of that money and put it into some better coins as well. But definitely, I'm not saying that means that you should have a small bullion stack. If you can afford larger amounts of bullion, then definitely go for it. Try to go for compact stores of bullion, though, as well, like 100-ounce pieces. I'd say definitely try to get into, because people always say, well, I can't trade a 100-ounce bar of silver for, a gallon of milk. Like, who's going to give me change back? I'm going to have to end up losing 100 ounces of silver, and get whatever amount of gallons of milk, and end up losing a bunch of money. But really, if you think about it, it's really not that hard to break apart silver if you have the right tools. So just be prepared for any situation, I'd say. And with that, I do hope you enjoyed the video. And I know you're probably thinking you didn't give me a specific number, because there is no specific number. It really comes down to what type of person you are. It's very circumstantial, I think. So yeah, at that note, I'm just gonna sign off here, and I do hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something from it. That is it for this one. Peace, love, and much respect.